Okay, welcome to the Canby Urban Renewal Agency work session this evening. Chair Garvey is not going to be in attendance this evening due to a prior conflict. And so I will be taking us through tonight's work session. First up is citizen input, community announcements. I have one here from Mr. Carroll that I believe you want to address this now, and we get into the conversation on projects.
Well, I wasn't aware that you could have citizen input on this meeting. I was going to do it at the city council.
Okay, I will hold that.
It's totally up to you.
Well, is it regarding the renewal?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then why don't you come on up and let us know what's on your mind and that will be right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'll do that.
Yeah, is this, that, well, sometimes that's if somebody is on a Zoom call at the same time. So I don't know. Oh, where is that?
I think make sure
Can he hear us? Yeah.
Can you hear us, David? Okay. Are we able to hear him? Can we hear you?
Can somebody open their mic and test that?
David, can we hear you? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
That's not a problem. Got to work the kinks out. So, for the record, I'm Sean Carroll, 785 Northeast 23rd here in town. And I'm here tonight to represent Canby Fire District and the Board of Directors. First of all, I want to thank Scott Archer and Sean Barwig for our meeting last week with Chief Davis and myself. It was a very informational meeting going over the URD process and things like that, and where the Canby Fire District comes into play. We urge the council to limit the number of projects in the future, and some of the funds that are the $6 million funds that you guys are working with. We would like to see some of that paid down on the URD and sunset this no later than 25-26 as originally agreed. In doing that, we have the ability to hire more fire department personnel in the future. We are short-staffed now, and in doing that and allowing us to hire more people, we can protect the city of Canby at the rate we're doing currently. I just urge everybody's, our board's representation in making sure that this sunsets in 25-26 and it doesn't extend further. Okay. I appreciate your time and good luck tonight.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you for coming and presenting a very succinct position from the board. That's always helpful for us when we get it straight. Have you guys had a chance to run any of the numbers on how much money you would be recommending to be put into the pay down? I tried working with Scott the other day on this, and the last time we did this was probably about 10 years ago. But you've got two things moving at once. Mm-hmm. You've got how much money is coming in each year that gives us money to work with.
Correct.
And that's going to happen until the last year. And then the debt changes each year. So I'm not sure that even in-house we have the capability to say if we took $1 million, how many months that would back time it. Right. Has your board had a chance to develop any of those numbers yet?
I don't know that the board has, but I think Chief Davis has worked with the county on getting that information.
Well, it's more than the county. It would be our amortization rate through our bond counsel. Last time anybody asked this question, we had to go to our outside bond counsel to get the answer. So I was just going to get some free help from you if you guys have already run the numbers for us.
Sure. I can check with Jim, and we can
You
contract
bet.
with you guys.
You bet. I am certainly open to this discussion, but it helps if you give me a number.
Sure.
$1 million. $1 million will buy us 6 months off of the extent of when we can retire it. That's the sort of weighting that I need to be able to get. And I'm afraid we're going to have to spend money to get that information.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see what we can work out or come up with for you. Any other questions?
Doesn't appear to.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Sean.
Appreciate it. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Vice Chair, or presiding officer, I move to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the February 16th, 2022 URA work session meeting and the reappointment of member Jack Pendleton to the Urban Renewal Budget Committee with a term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Hensley and seconded by Commissioner Spoon to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the February 16th, 2022 URA work session meeting and the reappointment of member Jack Pendleton to the Urban Renewal Budget Committee with a term that expires on June 30th, 2024. Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Abstained.
Okay.
I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, and one abstention.
Fair.
Let's do a count here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 6 of us. 601. Motion passes. Sorry.
No, 5.
1, 2.
Farwick's not here. It's 501.
Thank you.
There's 6 present.
And 7 people on the commission.
Correct. And he gets to vote.
Next, we'll move into new business, and it's a discussion regarding urban renewal agency projects. Mr. Archer.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hodson and Urban Renewal Commissioners. This is a follow-up discussion item. We've had probably now a few discussions about what we want to do with the proceeds from the refinancing of our debt. We had last discussed this with you formally on December 1st. And at that point, you, the Urban Renewal Commission, gave us some direction to go and essentially research some projects, find some costs, figure out some additional details, and then bring back those items to you when we were ready to do so. And so we're going to do that tonight and actually ask Jamie Stickle to come up. She is going to walk you through a PowerPoint with some updated information. And then, of course, we would love to have some questions and conversation about this.
Let's just see if I can nail the Zoom share. Councilor Bajoran, are you able to see that?
Yes, perfectly fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the urban renewal, on May 5th, the urban renewal, I'm sorry, one moment. I do not think. Just one moment. Sorry. It's not, excuse me.
No worries.
Oh, don't say March.
Thought I was really losing it. My apologies on that. Okay, Councilor Bajorian, are you able to see that then?
No, I'm not. If at this point you need to proceed without the presentation visible, you can do that, not for my benefit, but don't worry about it.
What?
Yeah, that was very good.
I'm sorry, we're having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Yeah, if you need to do it without the visible presentation, you can do that. I don't necessarily need to see it. I can take some notes. Oh, there it is.
You can see it now.
Yep, I can see it.
There we go. Okay, so March 16th, welcome. So the Urban Renewal Agency had previously met to discuss refinancing options and possible uses of the Urban Renewal Agency funds. The agency determined that they would continue to explore unfinished urban renewal projects. And for those projects, they were trying to find ways to apply the $6 million in savings from the refinancing of the urban renewal debt. So the assumption is that the Urban Renewal District will sunset in 25-26. The savings, that $6 million in savings, can be applied towards paying down urban renewal debt, and the Urban Renewal Agency could extend the life of the Urban Renewal District if desired. We wanted to show the map again just for clarification and refreshing. One thing we wanted to note is that part of this map, it would be too condensed, but part of this map does run the entire logging road trail towards Territorial up at the top of the map. And then at the bottom, it also includes Community Park, which will come into play in just a bit. We wanted to note what the district goals were. The goal 1 was to diversify the economic base and family wage jobs within the district. Goal 2, maintain effective, efficient, safe traffic system for vehicular and pedestrian users. Goal 3, improve and retain existing businesses. Goal 4, improve attractive visual amenities for customers and community members throughout the district. Additionally, wanted to outline eligible projects within the urban renewal plan that was adopted. So those were public improvements as far as street construction and circulation improvements, infrastructure and utility improvements, public facilities, parks, recreation, pedestrian and bike corridors and other amenities, and then upgrades to fire protection and emergency response systems. Current and continued uses of the remaining urban renewal funds, administrative costs, our facade improvement program, which we continuously have requests for information on that. And then the Quiet Zone and Grant Street Arch, which now that it's really taking shape, is a great welcome to our downtown. Some of the possible uses of the remaining funds, and you'll note that the top half or so is bolded. And those were the projects that in previous meetings had been identified as wanting to have some price estimates brought back. So painting the logging trail bridge over Highway 99, installing a footbridge, community park upgrades, Northwest 2nd Avenue upgrades, downtown alleyways, and then a couple of projects that we did not get price estimates on were First and Second Fur to Grant Street upgrades, Northwest First Avenue from Elm to Douglas Street upgrades, Township Road, and Waite Park improvements. Some of those Waite Park improvements have been underway in other projects. The preliminary cost estimates were provided by Kerr and McLeod. So we'll start with Highway 99 improvements, and these are going to be both roadway and gateway improvements. The roadway improvements total $809,000. That would be $505,000 for Berg Parkway, which is over by Safeway. That would be for colored concrete in front of the Safeway entrance, and then colored concrete at the Logging Road Bridge Gateway would be approximately $303,000. As far as gateway improvements, the estimate came back at $1.2 million. So the gateway improvements include decorative fencing, installation of artwork, repainting the logging trail bridge, and then the installation of lights. And we wanted to provide some images from the Canby, Oregon 99E corridor and gateway design plan, which was adopted in June of 2012. It highlights fencing, and then you'll also see architectural fencing and then metalwork, ornamental lighting, and then uplighting for the bridge structures. We were able to receive prices for 2 different options for providing pedestrian access to the Fred Meyer complex. Option 1 was identified in the Highway 99 improvement project. It was for the pedestrian access from the logging trail to Highway 99 on the south side. So that's the Fred Meyer side, which includes fencing along the railroad, which would permit safe and authorized access to Canby Market Center and Canby Fred Meyer, as opposed to the unsafe and unauthorized access that is currently used.
Jamie, you said the Fred Meyer side was the south side, but isn't that the north side? Fred Meyer? South of Burke Parkway. South of, oh, south of, okay. I thought you meant south of, like south this way on the side of the bridge, but you mean south of 99.
South of 99.
So not
Yes.
south of the logging road bridge, south of 99.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
On the south side of town.
Yeah.
Would have been a better way to say that.
Yeah.
And the engineering came back as noting that a path on either side of the logging road path would work. Neither of those would encroach on railroad property. And the path would need to cross ODOT property, which would require additional planning and permitting. I'm sorry?
What's the ODOT property that we're talking about?
Just that ODOT right away.
By Highway 99.
By Highway 99 coming off
Yeah.
the bridge.
There's always
You always have a
bands of so much property, so much footage on each side of the 99.
Option 2 is for the logging trail ADA Skybridge access to Fred Meyer. That would be $2.2 million. It would be a pedestrian walkway bridge over the railroad, pedestrian access stairs and elevator. This would require purchasing right of way from the railroad, which would likely incur a yearly fee and a right of entry agreement, as well as an easement from the Canby Market Center and Fred Meyer complex. The estimate does not include the ongoing costs for easements or right of way entry. The community park redevelopment, we provided 3 options. So this is community park as it was laid out in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan in 1997. So option 1 is $503,000. It would include water service and sanitary sewer service from in community park to the bathrooms and the Cub Scouts building. Which would be $110,000. We did break down on some of these larger groupings of projects within, community park. We broke it down so that if you wanted to say do one, the street lighting and bathrooms, we could kind of piece it together. We would install 2 unisex Denali flush restrooms, which are $109,000 each. One would be in the current location to replace the old existing restroom. One would be near the parking lot, near the entrance to the park. The addition of 60 parking stalls, which would be $150,000, which would include 6 ADA parking stalls and then 54 regular stalls. And then street lighting. We put together kind of a rendering of what that could look like. So this would be what community park would look like. As you can see down the road in the red and the blue is the water line and the sanitary sewer service. And then those would run from the first restroom out towards the second and then towards the Cub Scouts building as well. And then, would also increase the parking right here near the ball fields. The second option would be to do this water service and sewer service or sanitary sewer service, and then also install the 2 Denali flush restrooms. That would come in at $393,000. Or the third option, which would be to just replace the existing restroom with the Denali flush unisex restroom, which would be $109,000. Then we started to look at what downtown improvements for streets and alleyways would look like. So the Northwest 2nd Avenue updates, which would include Grant Street to Elm Street. There's a range listed here between $550,000 and $1 million. And that's because it could be done where we The first part could be reconstruct to match the downtown concept, which would include curb bump outs, brick accents, tree wells, pedestrian scale, street lighting rather, and then pavement restoration. And then at $250,000 per intersection would be reconstructing the decorative brick. So in the first bullet where it talks about brick accents, that's more on the sidewalk and as people are entering, as we've done on Northwest 2nd and Northwest 1st. But the decorative brick on the street are those big, we call them medallions internally, but the brick like you can see here. Then we discussed alleyway improvements. That would cost potentially $400,000, which would be resurfacing and constructing drainage improvements. It would be 3,941 feet of improvements, including 78,000 square feet of surfacing with drainage. The drainage would utilize inverted crowns, which would direct the stormwater to adjacent streets. And the alleys could be improved to encourage pedestrian travel, which would increase commercial activity, potentially with concrete sidewalk improvements. So the cost estimates for all of the projects together, and then our recommendation. So this is the cost estimate for all of the projects. It includes the range. So it ranges anywhere from roughly just under $4.6 million to $7.8 million. And our staff recommendation is as follows, would be to do the roadway improvements, which would be the colored concrete at Burke Parkway and the logging trail. Then gateway improvements at the logging trail, which would be the the decorative fencing and the artwork, lighting. Then it would be the logging trail access to Fred Meyer, which would be the ramp from the logging trail down to Highway 99. And then the installation of fencing to discourage unsafe access as it currently goes over the railroad tracks. Community park upgrades, which would be the 2 bathrooms, water and sewer service, additional parking and lighting. And then the upgrades to 2nd Avenue with reconstructing the decorative brick in the middle of the road. And that would be a total of $5.1 million. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Jamie, for putting that together and sharing that tonight. My question that I wrote down was, why colored concrete on 99? Especially at Safeway and by the bridge. What is that? Is that just to look good? Is there a significance to that? Can you explain that?
It was something that had been identified in the previous 99 plan. I think that one of the reasons for doing something like that, and I have not brushed up on that plan, but as like best practice, that often will slow traffic down, which when we think of 99 as just a way to move from one place to another, people don't necessarily want to go slow. When we think about Highway 99 as running directly through the middle of our town, we want people to slow down because the slower you go, it's likely that you'll see the Grant Street Arch, or you might see, a business like the Wild Hare. So it could offer some of that visual slowing. That could have been why, when the plan went through, parts of Highway 99 were 45 miles per hour. So, if you're thinking about going 45, if you're a very law-abiding citizen, or if you're pushing it maybe 50 or 55, I would want people to slow down, not just for safety reasons, which certainly that's at play, but because I'd like to hope that they would see something that would make them stay a while.
And just to add to that, and that's all accurate. And I would say also, I think the idea of those are, and again, this was just taken directly from that previously city adopted plan on 99. It also acts as kind of a visual gateway, short of having some other type of big entry piece, like on the north side, there's the bridge kind of saying you're coming into town. And if we were to do something, this is on this side of town, the south side, you're really just sort of going kind of continually in, and it sort of announces that you're here.
Okay. Brian, I might be able to help on that.
Sure, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I was on the task force that put together these recommendations. This was not the first recommendation. This was the last recommendation. The first recommendation was to have medians with flags and trees. And a number of people didn't like that, including the chamber. And so this kept getting whittled down to this being what could be accepted by the committee. So this is an idea that was crafted by a committee. So I think I'm still willing to find out if there's some advocacy for it, but certainly I would put it near the bottom. I have a couple of others, but how do you want to run this?
No, that was my other question that I had. And Sarah, did you have something on this line?
Yeah, just because it's related to that. I mean, I like everything, except I'm not a fan of spending that much money on colored concrete. I think particularly when we talk about the entry on the north side of 99, the north side of town, but coming in by Fred Meyer. If we do all of these bridge improvements, I feel like that creates its own gateway and we don't really need to spend money on colored concrete. I would be interested in knowing if we have any sense or idea of, instead of doing colored concrete down by Safeway, is there any way we can do something artistic along the sides for a lower cost to indicate that you're entering town? Something like a compromise between the two. I don't think we need colored concrete under this bridge. We would be spending $1.2 million to turn into a gateway. I don't think the colored concrete adds to that gateway feel down there once we do that. But on the south side of town, I could see a compromise, maybe finding an artistic indicator that you're entering town beyond just the sign that we have now. If that's something people are interested in, I suspect we could probably do that for less than what the colored concrete would be. And I think if that's kind of what a possibility, I guess, is my question. Is it a possibility that we could consider something else on the south side instead of?
I mean, I think that's part of why we're here, is to kind of like look at that top portion of that list and go, okay, are these still viable? If they are, then how do we need to tweak them to move forward, right? Or as Commissioner Parker was saying, well, we shuffle that one to the bottom of the list and go, well, we don't want to do colored concrete.
I think too, when we were talking about it in the meeting in December, we were talking to ODOT because we thought maybe there were some things we could do. Mm-hmm. And I think that what we had in mind is something different than just colored concrete. But as it turns out, they're so far along in their plans that this is kind of what we were left with. So for me, the price doesn't match up to the value for me, but.
If you had something on this particular one.
Yeah, it's on this line, actually. Well, first of all, I also remember this 99 Gateway or the 99 Vision Plan going in. Councilor Parker, or Commissioner Parker and I were both on the council at the time. That project's like almost a decade old now, isn't it? I think things have changed. And I don't think that colored concrete is the way, especially since we're going to be putting colored concrete on concrete that doesn't belong to us. So I don't want to spend that kind of money on ODOT's property. And we do have a lovely south end gateway kind of with that sign. I think we can do some lighting or something to embellish that and probably maybe even draw some more attention to the Vietnam Memorial that's right there. So I really am not a fan of this colored concrete project. I'm not a fan of any of them, to be honest, because you know how I all feel about URA. But that being said, this is my.
Are you going to say that once?
I'm not going to only say it once. You know that. But at any rate, of the projects, this is my least favorite, and I would be happy to see it go away.
Well, and again, there wasn't much enthusiasm for this. A number of us wanted some rather bold things, a median in the middle, flat flags and that sort of thing. But each of them got shot down because, well, what about replacement costs, safety? Can people be able to see? And that's so finally, there was a sense on the committee of wanting to do something for that part of town. Mm-hmm. So this was a last gasp at trying to find something, but
didn't understand ODOT though.
Yeah, but my suggestion would be to staff is if within the areas that we already have, the Vietnam Memorial, the gateway sign, that sort of thing, if there's some improvements, it would be nice to add something to that part of town. But even as somebody who was on the committee, I would say that we shouldn't really take that part seriously.
Okay. Can I ask what the cost would be if we took that 808.6 off? Can you go back to the screen, or can you, whatever that final number was of staff recommendation, was like 5.1.
5.152.
5.2.
Yeah, rounding up is like 5.2, so it'd be.
Yeah. So we could get down to
6.4.
4.4
Yeah. be
just
done
by
before
getting rid of
four.
those.
152.
So
Yeah, we could get down pretty
Down to
close to
like
4.4
4.5.
just by taking that project off. And even if we kept a couple of $100,000 to do $200,000 to do something to embellish the other areas, it still keeps us closer to 4.5 million total.
And Jamie, if you wouldn't mind leaving this list up, so we can kind of talk through it a little bit. Commissioner Parker, you had some thoughts on some of these other ones?
Well, I was just going to give a rundown here. The gateway improvements, yes. Logging trail access to Fred Meyer, yes. Community park upgrades, I'd go with the high-end model on that. Second Avenue upgrades, I'd move that down below alleyway improvements. If we still have some funds that we agree upon spending, it would make sense to push the downtown district from out to Elm, from Grant to Elm. You heard me talk last meeting about wanting to try and balance downtown housing versus the fact that we have a commercial overlay. I think those blocks already are committed to commercial. And so I could see that being a valuable thing, but I would move that down. So Gateway, Logging Trail, Community Park, Alleyway Improvements, and hallelujah, we got a project coordinator in there. I don't want the lights to go dim as we try and carry this out. We're going to need some more help. And contingency, that's a function of what you think we should do. So that would be my shopping list.
Commissioner Parker, so you talk about expanding the downtown kind of core, south, or I guess west to Elm, and then what about north and south? Did you have because I think you and I have talked about that before, about going north to 3rd and 4th, and then south to 2nd and 3rd, and including that in what's considered kind of the downtown core.
Correct.
So
I'm open to that, Brian. I didn't want to have scope creep tonight.
Sure.
I just wanted to stick with this. I would be happy to, if there's consensus, of pushing that suggestion back to staff and see if they have a suggestion on how to deal with that. But I'm just.
Do you want to go to 2nd or 3rd or 3rd or 4th on the south side?
Sure.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question. Was I don't necessarily think that necessarily, I don't know if it's in the urban renewal district, but if in terms of a conversation piece, that might be more of if it's not in urban renewal, that might be more of a council conversation than an agency conversation.
And yeah, you and I agree on this, that we really do need to perhaps convene a downtown task force to take a look at that and come up with the balance between housing and commercial and where we want to put some additional improvements. I was just trying to get us to 7:30 with a list of agreements. Sure. So that's where I was headed.
No, and go ahead, Jimmy.
I just was going to say, I think it only goes to about 2nd on the south side.
Okay.
If
on the south side, but on the north
the
side,
south
it goes
side,
to 3rd or 4th on the north side.
it goes to 4th, half of 4th.
Half of 4th. This side of 4th.
So now we have that kind of answer. Commissioner Spoon?
Yeah, first I have a question, and this might be more for Jerry than for Jamie. When we're talking about those intersections, can you go to the images of the intersections with the brickwork or whatever it is?
On 2nd?
Yeah, so one of my questions is, if we redo this brickwork, which I am kind of indifferent on redoing the artistic design versus just bringing them up to standard, will we eventually have the same problems of the uneven? You know what I mean? Is that something that we'll have to address again? Are we better off just
doing the stamped concrete?
Doing stamped whatever, something other than redoing what has kind of disintegrated?
The price that I got was for matching First Avenue so that the maintenance would be done.
Okay.
So it's for stamped concrete.
For stamped concrete. Okay.
Sorry, we said brickwork, but it is stamped concrete.
Reinforced concrete that would last a long time.
Okay.
Okay.
So that would be that colored kind of concrete stamped that.
Great.
Or go to blacktop and striping.
Okay.
You know, two options that we have.
My other question is on the alleyways. Can you go to with the alleyways? One of the things it says is that they can be improved to encourage pedestrian use, which I prefer this to intersections just because I think that we're seeing significantly more bicycling and pedestrian downtown, and we aren't really accommodating them to the best of our ability. So would that also include maybe some lighting? I know some of those alleyways can get pretty dark in the evening, or, something to make them a little bit more, when you say making them more pedestrian friendly, what does that mean? I guess my question is, what does that mean?
The price that we got for you, the estimate is just improving the road, the surface. The good thing about your question is all the utilities are in the alleys. So it would be accessible for any of that type of thing if it was requested.
Okay. In that case, if I was making a shopping list, I would feel 100% good just moving forward on the bridge gateway design, on the pedestrian access to Fred Meyer at the 490, not the elevator, and the community park upgrades at that $500,000 and $3,000 level of improvements. I would want to have deeper conversation. I'm fine getting rid of the Highway 99 improvements, the 809 for the colored concrete. I would love to see some investment in maybe sprucing up the south side of 99 for an entry, but I don't think we need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. I think that we have a creative staff and council that can come up with something. I would like to have maybe a little more conversation about what we envision for our alleyways and our downtown pedestrian, because I would be interested in getting some lighting on those alleyways if that's an option, because I do see pedestrians using them at night, and we want it to be a pedestrian friendly community. And then I care about the intersections, but to me, the level of community improvement is far greater with the bridge and gateway design, the pedestrian access to Fred Meyer, and the community park improvements. And then everything else I think is work that needs to be done, but I would put intersections under alleys for my wish list, I guess, hoping that the alleyways included lighting for pedestrian use.
Okay. Commissioner Parker.
And actually on Friday, the Public Works Director and the Bike and Ped committee chair and I, as liaison to Bike and Committee, are going to be discussing this very thing of taking a look at the projects and referring them on to Bike and Ped for some a citizen review on this.
Question regarding funding for the alley improvements and then the intersections with the 3.9 from the state and the Christmas tree bill? 2.9. Sorry. I'm having a hard time with numbers today, whatever reason. I want to add more than what there is. So with 2.9 going to Walnut, does that free up some of that dedicated funds to be able to do some of these projects that are not necessarily urban renewal dollars, but maybe we get both of those done? Because I agree with the alleyways being an improvement piece, because there's a lot of opportunity, I think, with that. I do think that improving Second Avenue and those two intersections at Ivy in Second and then Granite Second to that stamped concrete would be, because that's just going to continue to get cruddier and cruddier. Yep. So I guess back to my question of, does that free up road funds from Walnut to be able to contribute to these projects?
Yeah, let me jump in there and then help me fill in any of the parts that I might be missing. But so with the $2.9 million that we've been recently notified that we're going to receive through our recent short session, going to the Walnut Street project, that does then, we did plan for the full funding of that in the CIP. So that then means that there could be some potential funds that get diverted. One nice thing about the legislative funds is that it gives us a little bit of a cushion with the way things are going with inflation and costs, and then of course fuel, and that's directly relates to pavement and those kinds of things. So a little bit of that, I would say it's nice to have a little bit of a cushion, but we've certainly got a pretty big cushion there. I would say with most of these projects, But I would exempt the pedestrian bridge. We have potential other funding sources that we could use. The idea here was that these are within the urban renewal district. You had this refinancing. It provided an opportunity to have this conversation about ways we could utilize that and apply it towards some projects that you wanted to do anyway. So to your point, Chair Hodson, what you're basically saying is, what I'm saying is, yes, we could potentially use some other funds for that project that you're asking about specifically, but even potentially some of the other ones on this list. Another example of that might be the community park project. We could talk about park funds with that, but it's an opportunity to have this conversation with urban renewal while we have an urban renewal district still open, and the opportunity is there to use it. So. But again, I would say short of the pedestrian bridge improvements, we really don't have another funding source that I think is easily identifiable for that. There might be a patchwork of funds we could come up with, but that would probably be at the expense of, some other things, and probably of our general fund. So, but again, I think the idea here is that we're having kind of an opportunity discussion with this funding source that we have available at your, to use it. And it's not that we have to spend the money. It can be spent, and it won't affect when the district closes. And it won't affect the rate. It doesn't increase anything because it's just a refinancing that simply provided us a windfall because of the great rates that we got. So I would say that's kind of where this whole thing is. I know that's a little bit beyond what you were asking, but I think that might give a little context to the whole discussion of it's an opportunistic discussion. And then lastly, just while I'm kind of on that point for a moment, is anything that you don't spend from the $6 million refinancing, essentially, if you leave that on the table, it just goes back into the district. It doesn't get spent. That's where you get into that discussion. Commissioner Parker, you were asking about that earlier, about how can the district close earlier potentially. It's a kind of a convoluted question, and I do think we would need to have some further research and conversation about that. But you don't just simply pay it down with debt savings. So it's not like cash, it's debt that you're still continuing to incur, but you're getting more out of your financing. If you were to want to do some or all of these projects, and even if you shorten this list down and gave us some direction there, you do need to account for the fact too, as far as the life of the district, that we need to be able to have the time while the district exists to complete the projects. We think that these are doable within the time frame that's left by that 25, 26, but there is an idea too that if you leave some of that money and don't want to utilize it to go back into to the district, that doesn't necessarily mean closing early, simply because the mechanics of getting the projects done in a timeline. So there's that consideration as well, just to kind of put that out there.
Thank you. Jamie, would you mind bringing that list back up?
Shopping list, absolutely.
Thanks. Yes, Commissioner Banks.
I support the idea of abandoning the colored pavement, and also agree with the prioritization that Commissioner Spoon suggested with the logging road bridge, the pathway down to 99, accessing the South Canby Marketplace, and the community park upgrades. But I'm willing to reconsider other funding options for that downtown pavement project and alleyway, and not necessarily spend all that $6 million. I have a question about the community park thing. First, part of that seemed like the longest line of plumbing goes to the Boy Scout house. Does it currently have plumbing there?
It's on septic.
Okay, so we have a need to replace it anyway.
We do, and it is on the water line is also really old.
Okay, so that's something that has to happen.
Yes.
Okay, so and then at $109,000 we get a unisex bathroom. Is that 2 or is that 1?
It would be a double. It'd be 2 of like a timber park. It'd be like,
Okay.
it's not
So
just
unisex, but there's 2 stalls.
Correct.
And so then potentially for another 109,000, we could double that capacity. Because I believe that we are short there in the number of toilets, particularly in the summer. I think Chief Davis could attest to the numbers of people that go down there. And my goal is to get people to stop using the slough.
Could we maybe see the map again of the improvements?
When this got brought up, Commissioner Banks, Jeff Snyder and I sat down and, they have the parking issues down there that police and fire deal with constantly. So we thought we would throw in the additional ADA parking and the parking stalls. And you can see where we put the other bathroom right kind of close to the ball field there out front, and then put parking on both sides of that. The plumbing would come down the road into it, and then it would, we'd put a grinder pump there, and then everything would gravity to that area.
So we would double our bathroom capacity from what it is now.
Correct.
At that 500 and whatever mark that was recommended.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of that. I'm willing to juggle the two road maintenance projects after looking at different funding sources. But I really like those three going forward.
I'm going to throw, I think, two ideas on the table here. That's not on the list. I know. One idea that I'm going to put out there for conversation is we no longer own any dirt or property downtown. And as you mentioned Commissioner Parker, and we were talking it in our goal setting, the council was discussing in their goal setting piece, the housing and looking at housing and how is that going to get developed and whatnot. So I think using some of this to be able to purchase land within the urban renewal district, which then can be leveraged later on for further investment, again, adding to really the engine that we've created here for the urban renewal district for the tax base for the city. So that was my first suggestion or thought. And the second one was, how do we set money aside to leverage for another development like the Dahlia project? Do we have that money set aside to be able to use that to entice or encourage a developer to come in and do, a 1 and 2 bedroom apartment type downtown structure or development? So those were my two thoughts in that regards for just our downtown here in terms of that. So it's not on the list, but that can be something I'm thinking we can add and earmark money for doing those types of projects. So those are my two add-ons to this piece. Yeah.
I would be very supportive of that. And I think that also justifies trying to find different sources for the two transportation projects. I think that would be a big benefit in our community to have a second Dahlia. It's at capacity already, is it not?
It is not. It is.
What was the city's cost in developing that project? Roughly, ballparkish.
There was about 3.4 million, I think, in land and forgiveness of various fees, and then some cash contribution.
And that was for the whole block. That included the Old City Hall and PD. Commissioner Spoon.
Yeah, I could get behind finding alternative funding for the intersections and the alleyways, as long as, I do think they're important projects and I want to see us pursue them. I'm just open to juggling how we finance those projects. I really think, particularly given the timeline of the theoretical sunset of the urban renewal district and the inflation, that I would like to see us advance the bridge gateway design, the pedestrian access, and the community park project sooner rather than later. Figure out the other things, and then I would stay open-minded to land purchase or another joint venture project like the Dahlia. So to me, that seems good. If you just take those three projects and I add in the complete amount of contingency and the project management consultant, which in theory would be less because we're not tackling the whole set of projects. But if I take those total amounts, it only comes to 3 million, which is really only half of our savings. So that leaves us with a significant amount of money for either land purchase or whatever else, or we end up not doing anything and the money is set aside. So I feel like that's a pretty good compromise. I feel good about that. And I would like to get us in. I'm not sure what needs to happen for us to say, yes, please go do these three things. But whatever it takes for us to get there, I'm interested in doing that quickly.
Brian? Yes, sir. Did you have?
You first.
I just haven't done my shopping list out yet.
Yeah, if there are other comments first, I was just going to kind of respond to that.
No, if you want to answer to
Sure.
what she said, that's fine.
Sure,
That
that-
stays in contingent conversation.
Yeah, that might help. It might help with kind of bringing the conversation to wrap, which is that is what we're looking for is basically a direction from you. This is essentially a work session and just trying to get your consensus direction. We would have to bring back follow-up action items to you. We would have to budget. And so we're coming up to our next year's budget process, and that would be the timing is great for that. So if we had a consensus direction on we want to do these projects, we would have clear direction to be able to move and take the necessary steps. And then of course we go through all the processes of bidding, design, bidding, and eventually, again, these all come back to you. They come back through the budget. They come back through approving contracts. So there is always more check-ins on these. You do not have to, and I think this is what you're saying, Commissioner Spoon, you don't have to try to account for all of that $6 million. It's the life of the district is as what it's planned right now. And you have time to continue these kinds of discussions over, the next couple of years or so. The only thing you need to be cognizant of, again, is if you're going to take some action that takes time to implement while using these urban renewal district funds, is they need to happen within the life of the district before it sunsets. So we have to leave ourselves some time. But again, with the projects that I think it seems like this is going anyway, it's very doable. We would have enough direction to move forward on some action items. And then you would still have time to continue that conversation about other options with that money. So just to be clear about the process.
Mind if we go Commissioner Hensley, then back to you, Commissioner Barker.
Oh, thank you all. My shopping list, if I had my druthers, it'd be 0 things. But I know I don't have the votes for that. I'm glad we're all in agreement that we don't want to do colored concrete on ODOT's property. So that is off the table for me completely. As far as what projects are left on there, if I had to prioritize, I too think the alleyway is a little more important than what's listed on here. Second Avenue does need some upgrades. I'm glad to hear that we're going to get rid of the bricks and do stamped concrete instead, because I think that the brickwork idea was not the brightest move. So I'm glad to see that going away. I would agree that the community park could use some new upgrades in restrooms. The logging trail bridge idea, it's one of those sexy projects. I don't know how necessary it is, but I get why people would want it. If I had my druthers, we would close this thing tomorrow if we could and reallocate all the money to the general fund and spend it from there as it should be. But that apparently is not on the table. So I guess that would be my priority list. The Christmas tree bill did afford us some money, so I'd like to see if we can reallocate how we spend those funds on those street projects and save some of that URA money. And I am not interested in buying any dirt, so that would be a hard sell for me for us to spend municipal dollars on a project. Not that I don't like the Dahlia. It's a lovely project. It was a success, but I feel that that's a private sector position and not us. So I'd love to see something like that developed, but I don't want to pay for it with taxpayer dollars. So I'm not interested in buying dirt, and that's a hard sell, Mr. Mayor. I love you, but no.
Fair enough. Commissioner
Barker. First of all, I would like to hear from Commissioner Bajoran, and then I have a couple of comments.
Brady Bunch. Where is he?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. Really, as far as everything that's been said so far, I do agree that the gateway improvements are I think, a priority along with that long trail access, because I think that's more a safety thing than a aesthetics project. I mean, as much as it is aesthetics as well, it is also safety. And then as far as community park, it's obviously been woefully disregarded for a while. I think it's time that gets put on the front burner as opposed to the back burner. Outside of that, I agree to not spending any more than we absolutely have to on these things to try and sunset the URA at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Commissioner Bajorn. Commissioner Parker.
Well, first of all, in terms of the property, possibility of buying property, what I'd like to do is the next URA meeting that we have of having an executive session prior, because there are some things that probably need to discuss, and under the meetings law, we do have the ability to discuss that in terms of properties that we'd like to look at. I don't think it'd be a good time to, in a public forum, to put a bullseye on properties that might be open. But I would like to explore that, because there's some opportunities that are out there. That's one. Two, just to try and draw a circle around this, that if staff has a good idea of what our top priorities are, frankly, I think 3 projects is a pretty big handful to proceed over the next year or two. And Scott, am I not correct that the way the district works is that we're not getting that we don't have $6 million today, that's going to progress. So the fact that we can delay some of this decision making even until next year. I think the critical thing right now is to be able to give staff an idea of the projects that we definitely want to pursue, so that can be ground into the budget proposal that is going to be coming to us. That's the main thing, is to get those dollars scheduled. And finally, is there consensus among the commission to authorize the use of URA funds to seek an opinion from our bond counsel on some of these questions, so that if we have $1 million lying on the table, what does that mean? How many months? That sort of thing. I don't want to burden our finance director with having to crunch those numbers. You remember years ago when we were working with our bond counsel, they made it seem so much easier to be able to analyze that stuff. So my recommendation is that I'm comfortable having staff go out, use a URA funds to get some of these answers to the bond questions. If we have something specific that we want to send in to Scott, but I think he's got a pretty good idea that how much money will buy us how much time off of the URA.
Sure. I could get behind that, spending those dollars to ask that aspect as well. I think the 3 that's been kicking around in terms of and Jamie, correct me, right, the gateway improvements, it's discussed, that's the bridge, the logging trail bridge. Yes. Okay. I think that's, on my point of view, I think that's a long overdue piece for us to address. And then the logging trail access to Fred Meyer in some capacity. I can't say it was immediately we talk elevators and things like that. I immediately go to safety concerns, and that quickly turns into a vandalism graffiti hub, if you will. And then, the community park piece. And I definitely think we can do, depending on how we allocate funds from, road, street fees and whatnot for the alleyway and the 2nd Avenue upgrades, I think those being included in there, as a 4th project, if need be, or if that's got to be done through other methodology, I can entertain that one as well. So I think what we've been talking about is right up there. And I think that leaves room to purchase dirt, so all of it.
Nope.
Got to look a mile down the road, Commissioner Hensler. Yes, Commissioner Spoon.
I guess 2 questions. One is, since we're kind of we're putting alleyways and the streets, it sounds like, in a holding pattern while we advance on the other three. When we come back with more information about the alleyways, could we get some information about what adding lighting would look like, how much that would increase the cost? Just because from my perspective, that would be a nice add. And it sounds like other people are comfortable with at least looking at that. My other question is, when we say we're comfortable using URA funds to go to the bond committee and find out how much time money buys, I have no frame of reference for how much URA money we're talking about spending to do that. But I am curious. I want the answer. I don't want it if it costs too much, because it seems silly to spend a lot of money to figure out how to save money. Right? It's like there comes a point of diminishing return on that question. But if it's reasonably
Joe,
I can't imagine
how would one lawyer answer that question?
Well, I think rates in the Pacific Northwest can be high. Bond counsel might charge up to $500 an hour, but it might only take a couple hours. So it would be probably close to about $1,000. The other thing you have to think about is, the URA brings in money to pay off the debt. So, that's that weird moment where your last influx, you're asking to basically not have a last influx. So, I mean, if you're thinking about it that way, it's almost like there's a pinch point, and it probably is in that last year, especially in lieu of these. This will be a couple years worth of projects.
I have a couple of questions. At the quickest, using URA funds, how quickly could we fix the community park? Realistically?
No, realistically, we have a project that's getting ready to go out to bid. It's the Safeway. We're removing a lift station and gravity lined Third and Baker pump station. And that's a budgeted project that we're getting ready to put out to bid. So we could add the sewer and water into that project when it goes out to bid. So we could get started fairly soon on getting that portion started, which would be the big part.
And then do a supplemental budget, I would assume.
And then put or supplemental or throw in it into this year's budget and plan on just getting started, getting all the design work and all that, either one. But I don't know, would it be the time to do a supplemental on this?
Well, the timing too can depend on what I might be hearing is if you wanted to, I think we're clear on the three projects that you're comfortable with proceeding right now by consensus. What's maybe not clear is if there's an order of importance to you on those. And if there is, you could let us know that, and then we would work accordingly to that. And so, how much we might be able to do presently with Jerry's talking about there is a potential to tag part of that project onto something else and then use those URA funds. We would have to kind of look at that as a priority. I would say overall, I just want to be cautious that we are realistic about the whole of this, doing these three projects. We're probably looking at the span of a couple of years as we figure out the phasing of how we do these. But if there's a priority within these, you're certainly welcome we would invite you to give us that direction so we knew how to proceed accordingly.
Go ahead, Joe.
The other piece that I might add is when we were meeting with ODOT about the gateway improvements, they were talking about the need to work with the railroad. You still have to permit when you do anything even over the top of them, and you have to fence in a particular way and you have to shut it down. And is there a time of year that's better for that and all of that sort of thing too? So, I mean, not only is there only going to be so much money in the pots as it comes in, but there's going to be, two other agencies, ODOT and railroad, that we have to work with because that bridge goes over both.
It would be complicated like the quiet zone.
Well, would it be just Union Pacific, or do we got to work with Samuel's short line as well?
Yeah.
So three.
All three.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I guess my follow-up question, I'm going to counter you, Scott, and ask staff based on what you heard from the council's goal-setting meeting last week and balancing that now with, some of these play into that conversation. I guess how does that play into it, number one? And number two is, what does staff see as low-hanging fruit that can be handled sooner than later? chalk up a win or two before some of the, like, because the logging trail bridge, the gateway improvement, that's going to be a while. I mean, let's be honest, like, look how long it took us to get even Union Pacific to the flipping conversation table about a quiet zone. So, you know, I worry that that's going to be just as arduous.
All right, again, the low hanging fruit is on this list is community park upgrades. And then the others are, and, you know, as Joe and Jerry will just kind of explain, we've got some complexities to those. So that would be the easiest one to proceed more rapidly. And then tying it back to the goal setting, you know, I think that's why I want to be urge a little bit of caution and ask for some leeway on the timeline on some of this, because we do need to think of not just URA, but the city as a whole. And there are some other projects and, you know, some other priorities, of course, that you all as your counselor in your counselor roles are going to ask us to get some work done as well. So we have to fold that all together, but which is why I was insistent that we put some consultant time in here to help with the staff. But even then, there's still a lot of staff work involved. So, but yes, the community park is the low hanging fruit in terms of the projects that are least complex. Not to say that there isn't some complexity to that, because and kudos, by the way, to Jerry and to Jeff. For kind of coming up with this proposal that it was like, as long as we're getting in there and putting in new water and sewer and doing some improvements, we had this opportunity where you capitalize that you could easily then, you know, if we need a bathroom, we could do a couple of them just about as easily with a little bit more money. We looked at that and started thinking then we could also add some parking, because we desperately need more parking down there and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of how that unfolded to where we brought you this idea that we could do more than you had just asked us for, and we wanted you to be able to consider that. So, yeah, with that, I think since community park is, I think, low hanging fruit there, I'd say, you know, that should be put that at the top of the list in my opinion, and then the gateway project, gateway improvements, and then in conjunction would be the access from the logging trail to Fred Meyer. My caveat on that is being able to do that as two separate projects, because I think we can get the logging trail done much sooner than the access to Fred Meyer. I worry that the Fred Meyer, that access project will carry us past the end of the urban renewal agency. That
sounds like
we have a track record with Union Pacific on that. So, and ODOT. Commissioner Spoon, you something?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're all on the same page here. It sounds like if community park is easier to advance with, let's go ahead and do that. And then just open the door on the other conversations, because those conversations will take a long time. So open the door with the conversation, start down them, but understand that those are going to take significantly longer to complete. But it sounds like it's going to be a process just to get everyone to the table on some of those. And so we may as well start trying to do that, by accepting that the whole process on those is going to be significant.
Well, that's why I think the Second Avenue and the Alleyway aspect as a fourth piece is fluid, because if, as Scott's saying, that's funds, if we spend it, needs to be planned and completed before the end of the agency. If we've got to pivot away from the trail access to Fred Meyer and go to those, you know, that fluidity needs to be there.
Yeah.
Commissioner Parker?
Brian, I was just going to say the same thing, that part of, we can get started right now on the Fred Meyer element and the Parkway, but that's going to take a long time. So really, the sooner we get that in operation. But that being said, there's going to be months where nothing are happening, nor expenses being accrued. And I'd like to push the Second Avenue up and the alleys up. You know, talk about low hanging fruit, visibility. You know, we're going to have 2 new pubs coming into town in the next year and a half, both of them adjacent to alleyways. And at least one of them has an alleyway that looks like a bombed out crater. So, and Jerry, I'm right. The alleys are our responsibility, the city of Canby, right?
Correct.
So I'd like, I guess fluid is a fine thing for me that you've heard our priorities, but if we have time and money and energy, those two projects would really help make the downtown pop.
And thanks for the picture, Commissioner Parker. That was texted to me from you.
Well, and Commissioner Hensley took a day out of her time to tour all of these. And when you came back, you decided what?
They need help. Yes, we went 4x. Good thing you had the truck, Jerry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Just Mr. City Attorney. Yes, you have a comment.
So when we met with ODOT, when we were even talking about the improvements and whether or not it was feasible to do the gateway improvements, what is interesting is there might be an opportunity. I don't know. They kind of talked themselves out of it while we were talking to them. But they've now kicked that can down the road yet another 6 months. They're going to probably come back to you for the noise variance. And it looks like their 6-month window kind of got jogged down, which stinks for 99E, but it might actually help us with that, because then working with them, it might actually get it done in that timeline. So I'm just adding what I know.
Well, and again, it's a plan that's been on the shelf. We just have to pull it off, blow the dust off of it, take a look at it, and make those appropriate adjustments to that gateway improvement. So
I think working in conjunction with ODOT, if that timeline works out, would take some of the weight off of us, because they're going to be having conversations about shutdowns and whatnot. And if we can just streamline everything, I think we would get done more quickly overall. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts on this list here from the agency?
No, but that wasn't in the packet, Jamie. Could we get copies of it, or could you post it somewhere? Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
Yes, we know Jamie. I think every meeting, the last few weeks, I've asked for whatever slideshow to be emailed to us. We never get anything except from Jamie. Thank you for doing that.
You're very welcome. Now I have to really make sure that I do it. No, I'll do that later this evening.
When ODOT came, anytime a consultant brings it, I ask them to email it to Melissa or Maya to get it to us. Thank you. And I never seem to get them. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Right.
Vice Chair Hudson, I wanted to comment also on the question you asked earlier. We, the projects that I work off of are on I have a 5-year CIP and it's Locust Street, 10th Avenue and Pine. And I have a list that I've just been kind of going off of. And maybe with the money we save, hopefully with Canby Utility, undergrounding the power, working with them, and then maybe the money that Scott's getting us for that, I'm hoping that maybe we revisit the CIP, and if some of that fits into that, we could look at that later.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great conversation piece to have with the council and bring that back and expand that. Okay. I think that's a good idea. All right. Any other agency business, Scott and Joe and commissioners? No? All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn us from this meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Canby, we're going to take a 15-minute break as we adjourn our Urban Renewal Agency. The City Council meeting will begin approximately 15 minutes from now. Thank you and tune back.